Well, okay, we got a guest today. We get from our insiders group, from just awesome life in general. It's another Matt. If you're just joining us, Matt Glendening is on. I'm gonna bring him in real quick.
Good, Johnny,
there
you ready
he
to be on
is.
first?
Yeah. What's up, Matt? How you doing, man?
Hey, I'm doing all right. How are y'all?
Doing very well. Your audio sounds great. Video looks great.
Great.
Good stuff, man. For sure.
Look at all us audio guys getting decent at video.
I know. Yeah. It's like we know just enough to be dangerous, I think.
Exactly.
That's all we need.
Dude, Matt, thanks for jumping on with us today.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
It's great. How was your weekend, man? What were you up to this weekend?
Man, my weekends right now are kind of weird. It's cool that we're talking about like volunteers and kind of volunteer culture and stuff this week, because a lot of what I'm doing right now is very hands off. So my role is I'm not really at any of our campuses. So I'm kind of all 9 of our locations centrally, just kind of managing all of our production stuff. But so I was hanging out at our main location this weekend, Somerville. But I've been mostly just training up we got a production director for our Somerville campus. So I've been kind of training him and letting him kind of do all the stuff that I used to do. So it's been kind of wild, but I've been super hands off when it comes to the week in, week out stuff, but still here.
Yeah, you are. That's really cool. How do you go about, because I think this is something that, gosh, I mean, everybody who's in like a production role, like whether it's staff or just kind of like just like a lead volunteer position maybe, and they're trying to train other people, how do you go about like approaching training and like kind of trying to like replicate yourself into other people?
Yeah, so I feel like because I kind of started this role about 6 years ago. When I first kind of started, I felt like, I don't know, I was probably trying to reinvent the wheel quite a bit, and was like, let me figure out how to get, like, we were doing all the personality tests and like, where do you fit on this team, and like trying to get people exactly in their perfect spot. And I still think, that's really valuable to like listen to your volunteers and pay attention to what they want and what they're trying to kind of do by serving on Sundays. Because I think Matt said it really well. You're talking about the guy on your team that does video production stuff like full time. And a lot of times you assume, oh, that's kind of where you're going to fit. But in reality, a lot of these guys don't want to do what they do for their job on Sunday. And I think that's totally okay. So we really started heavily cross-training. I think it is a little bit more difficult kind of the higher you go in like your production. But if you can get people early on to kind of shadow a few positions and see kind of what speaks to them, what do they feel like they'd be most comfortable starting on, and go with that. But we do as well. I lean heavy into our camera op positions. For kind of that, like if you don't know where you want to start and you're not super comfortable jumping in anything right away, that's kind of a low barrier of entry there.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Matt, is that where you like start people with camera ops usually, or?
Yeah, definitely. So we have like oh, sorry. I totally assumed you were talking to me.
Dude, I was going to say, I need to now specify.
That's so funny.
I was referring to you, Matt Borsick. I will have to. Man, like I said, I'm outnumbered this time. So, yes, Matt Borsick. Is that how you approach it too? Maybe we can kind of all go through our approaches, like onboarding somebody.
Yeah. I usually start. So we have like stick cam and a handheld cam. So we've got like, I'll just like the Blackmagic Ursa stuff right now. And we only have like one stick camera with an operator. The other two are just static looks. And then we have a like an RF cam that has a tear deck, and it's one of the little red Komodo rigs that we use. Same thing I said with the crowd mics, like pulling double duty. I was like, we got the Komodo to handle for live stream, but then we use it for content all throughout the week. So it works out really well. Got it rigged up to where it's just super easy to jump between. All that to say, I usually start people at stick camera. just to kind of, again, get introduced to the production environment, all of the like production meetings and calling cues and all that. And then I'll usually have them hang out in the control room after that. And if they show an interest in, like if they're a musician or show an interest in music or audio, all of them hang out at Monitor World and just kind of vibe it out and see where they're at. But that's kind of my like onboarding. Start with cameras. If they are into video, I'm like, great, why don't you hang out with the video switcher and see if that's something you think you'd be up for. Actually, we had another, now that I think about it, our video switcher this past week was a volunteer in his first week video directing on his own, and he crushed it. So
nice. That's awesome. Yeah. God, I love like getting something plugged in and then just like seeing them succeed at it. There's like, I feel like there's nothing like more rewarding than that. Yeah, I actually take a similar process. Like with starting people on camera, partly because we have a lot of camera volunteers. We usually have like 6 positions over the course of 3 services during the day. So it's kind of like I just need more people on camera. So I'm always like, hey, do you have any interest in camera? Do you want to start there? Like just see what happens.
Do you have an Instagram? Great, you love photography. Let me put you on camera.
Have you ever opened your camera app on your phone? Like, great, you love it. But yeah, so a lot of times that'll stick, and then sometimes we're like, I hate paying attention this closely. I think that's like the downfall of like camera and pro presenter too. Just like you just have to be like so zoned in on it. Like some people are just like, can I like do something where like in audio or like lighting or whatever? It's like, okay, like worship is like you're just zoned in, but then it's like the message happens, you're like, oh, I get to like relax and just listen for a minute, and cameras are like, I've got to just pay attention all the time. But yeah, so I'll usually kind of like divvy people out from there unless they have like a specific background in something like that.
Nice. Dude, I feel like that we could do like the production Olympics and like have a presenter op have to follow a song while someone's holding a conversation next to them. Get like, I don't know, someone on stage and you got to keep them in the middle third,
yeah, right.
We're on to something here, guys.
Yeah, I think so. I think that could be a worldwide competition.
Yeah. Matt, do you normally start people on cameras too?
Yeah, usually camera, if it's like, if they don't have a position already, like that they already are interested in, that's kind of where we're going to start people. Just because I like to get people involved right away, even if they're training for something else. If they're down, it kind of gives you a little bit of a, I don't know, I use it to vet people a little bit too, because I think hearing how they respond to being placed in a position that might not be like what they want to do can give you 100%. A really, really good kind of, it's like a thermometer, I think, for kind of where they're starting. And yeah, I like to start guys on camera. A similar situation to Johnny. We have a lot of positions for camera. And it is one of those because we can kind of switch ops between services if we have to. We don't typically do that, but it's one of those positions I feel like if you have to, it's not like the end of the world. So if there's somebody that really wants to be involved, but they can't commit 6-7 hours on a Sunday, they can come be a part of one service and still be a part of a team.
Yeah. That's the approach I take too. I really like that. Okay, so we were texting before our Monday mic check. We were talking about kind of like preparing volunteers for success and like how to set people up to win and make Sundays enjoyable, like especially for volunteers, where it's like sometimes like you can get in and it's like if like things are struggling, like you're struggling, and it's just tough to like get everyone, get the momentum going and like make things go well. And a big part of that is like preparation. So Matt, you're talking about you have some things that you do. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Which Matt?
Matt G. Man.
Yes. Oh, there we go. Okay. All right. Yeah. Yeah, I can talk a little bit about that. We are actually today prepping for a big young adults event that we do once a quarter on a Monday, and it's called Together Nights. It's really cool. It's basically like a young adults worship night. Nice. We've kind of transitioned it fully into a worship night, and usually we'll bring in a guest worship leader, or maybe even sometimes we'll bring in a speaker. So we have a lot of events here. I feel like everybody feels like they have a ton of events, and it's probably true. We do a ton of events at this church.
Yeah.
It's basically every week we've got something going on. Wow. But yeah, because of that, it becomes a necessity to have really, really robust and I think healthy volunteer team. So yeah, it's not even so much an option. I think for us, it's like, because we don't have. I'm the only paid production person across all of our campuses.
Wow.
So everybody is 100% volunteer, except for one. We just hired him. I said that earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we have a really, really awesome volunteer team, but it hasn't always been that way. So, we kind of a few years ago we started really from the ground up. We didn't have much of a production team at this campus. There wasn't a lot of need. And it wasn't until really post-COVID that I think a lot of that was kind of highlighted. A lot of the need was highlighted, and there was some of that was seen by leadership. So we started really leaning into the needs that we have on our production team. So I was given a little bit more bandwidth to kind of work with in that sense and kind of recruit more. But yeah, so as far as recruiting goes, I think that is an area where a lot of people get really hung up on. I think it's really important. But we ran into this, and this is probably something that I think a lot of people deal with, is we started doing heavy volunteer recruitment across all of our ministries. So not just production. We have, all of our greeter teams, cafe, all of these different teams. I think on a Sunday morning, we're at it's some ridiculous number of volunteers it takes to do it's like 250, 300 people at Somerville campus alone between our kids ministries and all of those places. So, there was this huge need. And so we started heavy recruiting. And what I kept finding was, because we have we use a format called Growth Track, which gets people that are new to the church or want to start volunteering. It's kind of like a membership class, but it pulls them through I think it's a 2-week process now. It used to be 4. Of kind of who we are as a church, and they go down like spiritual giftings tests, all of that stuff to kind of figure out where they need to be placed. And then at the end of Growth Track, before they graduate from Growth Track, they get to kind of check a box and pick where they want to be. And what we were finding was we were getting a lot of response, but by the time it came to really get involved, people were really scared of production, and they were like, I don't really want to get involved that much. So
they got flashing lights and buttons and all kinds of stuff over there. Who knows what they're doing?
Yeah, and it's one of those things that I think a lot of people, they see it and they're like, oh, this is really cool, it's exciting, but it can be really intimidating depending on the extent to which your church does production. But I was having this dilemma trying to figure out, okay, how do I translate these people that are clearly interested to some extent, or they wouldn't be checking the box, into people that are actually joining the team and are wanting to be a part of what's going on. So I really started heavily leaning into these not too intense, but very frequent training nights, as often as we possibly could. That way people I could say, hey, I know it's really scary, but come be a part of what the team has got going on this weekend. And we're going to show you everything you need to know. You're going to be shadowing for X amount of weeks before you're ever expected to do this on your own. And it really kind of helped get a lot more people settled in. But beyond that, I think we really kind of realized, and I think a lot of production guys know this, the type of ministry this is very similar to, I think, the worship team, where it is there's some prerequisites. I think the lower we can lower that bar as much as we possibly can. And I think that great production directors and great production leaders are able to do that, to get, more and more people trained up and involved, but there are some of those just natural prerequisites. It's like, if you're terrified of computers, this probably isn't the ministry for you, and like, that's okay. Let's get you placed where you belong and not,
there's a place on the coffee team for you.
Right. Like, and kind of helping people through that process became a lot more of my job. Where, it's very personal, a lot less doing the thing and a lot more, hey, let's find where you need to be, because I think people can really, it's every time somebody has a negative experience like that, where, something goes wrong and it was their fault, but it's, they're new to the team. And even if we can sit there and say, look, it's okay. Like, it's not that big of a deal. It happens every single time something like that happens, especially to people that are already naturally usually introverted people. It can really, really just, they just don't even want to do it anymore. So the more we can reduce those kinds of interactions and those negative things, I think is huge. So making sure the right people are the ones that are coming into the team in the first place, and not seeing that as a negative thing, helping people get to the ministry that they belong in, and not, just saying, oh, you can press buttons. It's a little bit more than pressing buttons. We know that.
Yeah.
So the recruitment side, that's really important for us.
That's such a good point. I think that gets overlooked a lot of, just like, we're trying to find people a place to serve the church. It's not just like we're trying to find more people to like pad out the numbers in our production team and make it easier to, put on a show. It's like, no, we're trying to like give an opportunity to serve the church, not even just the production team. It's like just the church as a whole, like as a body. It's like we're trying to find people the right place to be able to express that.
Yeah. I think it helps you see things a little bit more, look more long-term than that short-term of like, okay, we just need people in these positions. And sometimes you're going to be in that position, but getting your outlook a little bit more into the future, I think is really, really important.
Yeah, I love that. I love
hearing the way you went about that, because the like kind of membership series thing with the checkbox at the end is actually something that we started doing, I think 2 or 3 years ago, almost exactly what you talked about. We start with like calling About Us class, which is just like, hey, come in, learn about the church, what we value, and then it kind of progressively gets pointed towards like, okay, let's find your, like the analogy we use is like your seat on the bus. It's like, hey, this bus, here's the bus, here's where we're going. If that sounds good, great, hop on, let's find your best seat. And so that I love that, because it does tie it into the bigger vision of the church. And then one of the things that we do is we ask people to commit to a team for 1 year. So we do like a big sign up push in the beginning. Obviously there's like on and off all throughout the year, but we do a big push, and that's what we ask. We're like, hey, if you can commit for 12 months, it's like an easy out. Like if you hate your life, you're like, great, you are automatically off the team in 12 months, And then it kind of becomes like, great, how do I like build a volunteer team that people are like, oh no, I want to be on this every year. Like I'm not going anywhere,
I really like the 1 year thing. That's cool.
A little stressful at the end of the year. You're like, hey, you guys are staying, right?
You're good, right? Yeah.
Hey, here's some free hoodies. Let's go to Top Golf,
Do you do it like during a calendar year, or is it like a year from when they start?
A year from when they start. So basically we do our big like volunteer push. We do a big one beginning of the year. It's usually, I forget, I want to say it's like beginning of February is when we do our like big, so we call them grace teams, and it's kind of in the spiritual gift side where like Bible talks about grace gifts, like things that just naturally kind of make you come alive. And so we're trying to help people find what that is, and then find a place to use that in the church. So that's like beginning of the year, we give time for them to go through that course, and then we do a big volunteer push kind of timed with that. So we run that like membership series once a quarter. So it's kind of like every quarter I'll get like a handful of new emails. It's like, hey, here's people that said they're like interested in production.
Nice.
And I think what you said, Matt, too, about like making sure it's not intimidating has been like the biggest thing for me lately too, is like trying to figure out how do I make this as inviting as possible, so that, people don't automatically assume that they're underqualified. Cause I'm like, dude, if you use a Mac at home, like you could probably be a great pro presenter. I'd probably be better than half the people I've had to like, oh, I'm a PC person, or I don't like computers. And I'm like, oh Lord, it's going to be a long journey.
I was gonna ask,
Yeah.
what do you guys do to like help make that process like, or even just like training more approachable, like just kind of the learning curve? Like how do you like onboard people into, objectively like a very technical and in some ways demanding volunteer position? Like how do you make that easier?
Yeah. So I think we're still figuring that out, right? But I will say, the more things that you can document, the better. Obviously, if you're able to, and I think I used to be really like not against it because, no, I wasn't against it. It was more so just like the process of creating documentation. I was always like, as soon as the one thing changes, I'm printing off another 45 sheet document of how to do this thing.
Yep.
And, it is hard, but one of the ways that I kind of helped to alleviate some of that was I'm taking now everything that is like I have a binder that has all of the stuff for our Sunday morning volunteers. Like if you know nothing and you have to turn everything on and I was hit by a bus and I'm never going to be able to help you again. Here's the Bible of how to do this stuff. Right.
Yeah.
But I also have, it's on Dropbox, which is really not convenient for everybody, but there's a QR code in our production booth that if they scan it, it will take you to a digital folder of all those same documents, but they can be updated whenever. So anytime that documentation needs to be updated, I can update it. And even if our printer's down in the front office, which it seems to always be down.
Always. Why do they never work? I don't understand why it's so hard to have a working printer, but yeah.
Someone could invent a printer that just works. Like
they want me to fix it. I'm like, guys, I don't know printers. I'm a sound guy.
You're the tech guy. You know, printers make sound. I don't know what you're complaining about.
But yeah, so having clear and concise documentation obviously helps. But other things beyond that, my background is from these guys that went to, they're all from SEU, so Southeastern University, and a long time ago. So they have, I was taught under this very, very detail oriented, like eyes to the details type teaching. And one of the things that, I learned early on was like, if you can do whatever it takes to keep your booth as clean as possible.
Oh, yes.
This is something that I think people think about, because when you're a production guy and you're looking around in the booth and maybe things are a little untidy or, things are sitting out like and not in like drawers, and you see an adapter laying on the table and you're like, okay, I know what that is. It's just not being used right now. Anybody that's coming into the booth that doesn't know what's going on, they come in there and it's like the Matrix to them. They have
they're like, what is this junk everywhere?
I'm expected to know how to use all this when really it's like, it's the audio console and like a couple other things, but you have all these notes taped to things and like turn this on in this sequence or else the sound system will explode and everybody,
and you'll get hit by a bus.
A bus will jump through the auditorium right on you.
Yeah. So like that sort of stuff. And sometimes, we make the notes thinking like, oh, this is going to be helpful for anybody that comes in here. And in reality, it's just more intimidating than anything.
Yeah.
So
it's too much information.
It's too much information. So the big thing I think for me is just like, I'm really, really particular about, keeping the booth clean. It's okay that we have a, we stage designs and random stuff is changing weekly. So it's like some stuff, we're going to run out of time and we're going to need to shove some stuff in a room or something somewhere, but I don't want people seeing that. So it's not so much to just say like, oh, look how clean our booth is. It's just so like, if somebody comes up, we upgraded from we were running a Roland M400, which I don't know. Yeah. Old console. Yeah. Until like a couple years ago. And then, we're running a Quantum 225 now. Yeah. And that step
225
up,
buddies.
Yeah. So, it's amazing, but like how intimidating it is, even for the guys that were on our audio team before that like come in one Sunday and now there's a spaceship in their booth.
Yeah.
And the less stuff they have just mentally cluttering what's going on in there, the better. And if it helps 1 to 2 to 3 people say, I'll give it a shot, then it's worth it to me to make sure you're keeping your stuff clean.
Yeah. But I think that helps
it's a big
for
deal.
people. Yeah. Yeah. I think it helps for people like all around too. It's like whether you've been on the team for, 1 week or 10 years, it's like having a clean environment to work in just like kind of sets the tone for like how the day is going to go and like how we run things. I've definitely even noticed that of like, when like the booth is messy, I feel like you get more of like just little like, doesn't really matter. It's whatever. Like just kind of there's like a more like lackadaisical attitude towards things. If they see it's kind of, it's kind of like if your like bedroom is super messy and then it's like, like what's one more shirt that I'm going to toss over by the side of the bed or whatever. It's like, it doesn't matter. And I think by like kind of setting the precedent for like, nope, this is kind of the standard that we keep things at. And like, this is how like we care about things, we show that, then that kind of sets the expectation for someone coming in and going, oh, okay, like this is how they do it.
Yeah. I've always found that it's like a fun like volunteer buy-in thing too, is doing like a Saturday work day or even like a Wednesday, great, cool. We're going to like come in and clean up the booth. Like, I've gotten ideas from volunteers too. We're cleaning up. They're like, hey, what if we did this? I'm like, that's a great idea. Yeah. We should do that. It just like includes them. And I feel like that's something that I get, as it's been like historically difficult for me to delegate and to be, or even just to like, so much easier if you're the staff person, just to like, great, I'm just going to pull up on like a Tuesday morning and get it done, but like
so tough.
The opportunity for team buy-in and even training. Like if you ever got to like repatch a stage or move something like that, does wonders for an audio volunteer. Just like being able to see, because if they've only ever touched the console, they're like, all I know is people play things on stage and somehow it gets here. And I know technically like this is how, but like, so even just that, and that's something I feel like I've tried to get better about is delegating and trying to include my volunteers in things, even though it's technically like, it can be a little more work on my part to like, okay, let me schedule time that works for them and like but I feel like it can actually go so far. Matt, I know you were talking a little bit about delegation when we were texting offline a little bit. What's been like your journey with that, or how do you guys delegate? How do you figure out what to delegate, and what does that look like for you?
Yeah, no. So this was something that, I still to this day, obviously I struggle with it, but I think it's one of the areas I feel like in the past couple of years I've grown the most. And there's a lot to delegation. I view delegation as empowering volunteers. So, there's a difference between delegation and just dumping work on people. I think that a lot of I was definitely I was kind of educated in a culture that it was probably a little bit of both. I definitely had a lot of stuff dumped on me. And I learned, and it was trial by fire, and it was great. But at the same time, I didn't learn a lot of the reason behind things until really later. So why do you wrap a cable a certain way, or why do you plug this into here, or like, why can't you send phantom power down this line? But and you're right. It takes a lot more work on the front end to really put in the hours outside of service and outside of the stuff nobody ever sees, to kind of go through and take an inventory for yourself of what are those things that only you can do. And I want to amend that too, because I think a lot of us have heard that statement and said like, oh, what are the things only I can do? But also, what are the things that only you want to do? I think that there is some value in, you also as a leader of this team. There are things that obviously we're going to bring volunteers up, and we're going to empower them as far as we can. And if somebody, my goal, I would love for an audio volunteer at some point to surpass my understanding of what's going on with audio, because I mean, I'm doing a lot of other things. If they're focusing on that alone, then I mean, that's a win for me. I can say, wow, like, look at God, that's amazing.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you know, it is valuable for you to say, like, what are the things you really care about, and what do you feel like God has actually like kind of called you to be doing, and what are the things that He's made you passionate about above everything else? Because you know, I think especially in the tech space, it's easy to like look at all these things and it's like, oh, I'm just, you know, I'm a tech guy. Well, that encompasses a lot, you know. I've gotten really heavily involved in video, audio. You know, I'm doing video editing sometimes with our creative team now. So like cinematic stuff, like storytelling, script writing, and that stuff. Like it just all adds up. And then, you know, you can wake up one day and you're like, man, I feel so tired and I feel like I haven't been doing anything that I actually care about. So, you know, having a good understanding of what is it that God's actually told you to be doing, and making sure that you're checking that box first, to make sure that, you know, because I think that's what gives you longevity in this. It's really easy to get burnt out, and but figuring out those things that only you can do, only you really want to do, and then kind of take that list and that gigantic list you now have of all the things you don't really want to do, but maybe somebody else is really passionate about. Maybe there's somebody on your team or somebody that's not on your team yet. So we were talking about earlier. So we have this event that we've got tonight, and we do a lot of events. But I'm super blessed. I have my wife, actually, what she does for events is anytime we have like it's not like a Sunday service, we have just an event. Through, you know, her relationship with me, she's kind of learned that she's really passionate about event coordinating. So she now takes all of the load of, you know, scheduling volunteers, making sure people are, making sure everything on Planning Center is input correctly, you know, making sure that all of the leaders of these different events are still doing things in some sort of standardized way, which has been a big deal for us, because, you know, we have a lot of different ministries that like to do big events, and the standard is very different for how we communicate with volunteers. So stepping in and making sure that all that stuff is handled in a standardized way has not only taken a huge burden off of me and stuff I can't stand doing, and I would much rather spend my time doing other things, but now she's empowered to go do the things she actually wants to do. And you have two happy people instead of one unhappy person. So I think that's really huge, is to, you know, don't count people out, you know, ask people if they want to get involved. Like, you know, don't be afraid of giving somebody something like that, something that may feel mundane and lame and just drive you nuts might be somebody's opportunity to really kind of find their passion and find what God's really wanting them to do. So I really am a believer in delegating like that, and just giving away as much as you possibly can, because it not only makes your life better, it makes everybody's life better. And, you know, you're just going to enjoy what you actually like to do a lot more. So for events, for me now, like I'm at this point now where events, for the most part, it's almost scary, because like I don't do anything except for like, you know, I'm going through and, you know, a couple hours before rehearsal, I'm making sure that, you know, I've got my session made and stuff on the console. I don't have to worry about lights or anything anymore, because I've got a guy for that. But, you know, I'm going through tuning the drum kit. I'm going through and making sure I'm doing a line check on everything before people get there. I just got one of these. Do you have a sound bullet? This thing is amazing.
Man. I want to get one.
I
want to
just
get one
for like 5 years.
Tell everybody
got one of those
who
things.
might not know. Tell everybody what that is,
bro.
Okay, so hold on a second.
Grab it.
So it is called a sound bullet, and it is the greatest thing ever made in the history of mankind.
That's what it seems like.
there's other brands. This is Sonect, and they make this sound bullet here, and it has XLR on both sides and a little 1/4-inch output thing. And basically it does everything you'd ever want. So you can test cables. So you can plug a cable in on one side and the other, and it'll give you a pinout and let you know, or it's this side. It'll let you know if you've got a short or something in the cable. It's got a signal generator, so you can pump pink noise and or a sine wave through it. It's got a speaker on it, so you can actually plug it into an output on a line level output and hear if it's got the signal that you're sending to it. It does everything you've ever wanted. That's all I'm going to say.
It's so cool.
It's really obnoxiously expensive for what it is. But I finally got one, and it's amazing. But like, I'll go through and do a line check, making sure that everything is kind of just generally working. That way, when the band is getting there, I try to do every single thing that can be done before the day of, just for my mental state. Anything that can be done the day before the day of, it's getting done, or at least there is a plan for it to happen at a certain time on the day of. Because and everybody that does events knows you'll have the list of things that you have to do, and you'll get to your event and realize, I've done a lot of work and none of it was this list. What is happening? So yeah, I think just having a game plan and sticking to it and not procrastinating is really, really big. But also, giving people opportunities to really operate in those ways with events is really big. Because people also want to be a part of the big event. Like, they want to. It's like Sunday is that work and practice to get ready for that big worship night. And a couple weeks ago, I got to give one of our audio guys the opportunity. He served on day 2 of our Abide Women's Conference, which is like the biggest thing we do all year. And I gave him the front of house audio seat, which is the first time we've been able to do anything like that. And I was actually able to serve on the worship team that week. I was able to lead a song, which is really cool. Because I haven't been able to, I haven't been able to do that in a really long time. And to have the opportunity was just like, look at God. Building this team and making things happen. So it was really cool. But
dude, to that point, okay, I was just struck by like how I was kind of remembering like when I was first like volunteering at a church or whatever, whether like for me it was on guitar first and then eventually on sound, and I just remember like how excited I was for like any opportunity to serve, and I feel like now over a decade removed kind of from like that stage of like my production journey, I guess. Like now I kind of feel like, oh man, but like if I ask him to do this, it's gonna be hard. Maybe he doesn't want to. Maybe it's gonna be a burden. But I'm like, man, I never felt like that. I was always like so excited when someone would come along and be like, hey, will you come in and prep this console? Will you just sit back there and run monitors or stage manage or whatever, like, whatever like the kind of like non-glamorous thing is. I'm like, I was like so pumped to do that. And I think like it's really easy like later, in your production journey to like forget about like how enthusiastic, especially like new people can be.
That's true. I think that connects to what you said, Matt, about like just assuming like if something is like draining towards you, it might actually like someone else might love doing it, but a lot of times our assumption is like, oh, well, I hate doing this, I'm not going to put it on someone else. But like, that might actually be exactly what you need to do.
And there's a lot of times I think that we're afraid to give things away because I think that it's really easy for us to unintentionally kind of find and root our identity in these jobs that we do. Like, oh, I'm the audio guy. So like, if I'm not on audio, why am I here? What am I doing? Like, what's the point? But that's not, there's nowhere in the Bible that says like, oh, Matt is an audio guy. And, that's just not, obviously there's giftings that God's given me and that I want to use those things. And he's told me to use these things. But at the end of the day, we're all just children of the Lord. And, we can serve and do all these things, but all he wants is our worship. And that doesn't matter where it comes from. It doesn't even have to be on a stage. It doesn't have to be in a booth. And so I think really kind of disconnecting and delinking your identity with that job that you do, even if you're really, really good at it. That's not who you are. That's something that you do. So
that's a good reminder for everybody.
I feel like that's also so freeing once you settle that, because I feel like it can so quickly turn into performance. And like, I think exactly what you're saying, like honestly, it was kind of post COVID for me. Like coming back, I think I personally wrestled with that a lot. And I felt like for the first time in my life, I kind of got freedom there. And I was like, man, and it was like, it didn't make the running audio any less fun. It wasn't like, oh, well, it doesn't matter now. This isn't who I am. It's like, it just made it so much more enjoyable because it was detached from my identity. There wasn't this pressure to like be the person everyone thinks, oh, Matt's the audio guy that, and dude, I think you're hitting the nail on the head. I think wrestling with that is such a necessity for everybody. Is making sure that you don't get your calling and your assignment confused. That it's like, hey, this is not your identity. This is what you're doing right now. But that's great, dude. It's a great reminder.
Yeah. So true. So true. Man. Well, okay. We got about 10 minutes left. So Matt G, I'm specifying this time. What's kind of next for you? You got any like fun projects coming up? Anything like interesting you're getting excited to work on?
Yeah. So I've been spending a lot of time on my personal YouTube channel.
Yeah.
Matt does audio, so
it's real good, guys. Check it out.
So not to plug, but it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Honestly, it kind of started for me as just an outlet. I needed an outlet for some of this creative stuff that I wanted to do. Yeah. And I'm a teacher at heart. Like I really, really enjoy teaching and building series and, writing series and doing stuff like that. So it's always something I've kind of wanted to do that's been sitting on the back burner. So last year I launched that, and it's been a lot of fun. And I would just say to anybody, now's the time. Don't wait. Just do stuff, man. Make content. Don't be afraid of what it looks like. Don't be like frustrated. And I'm a perfectionist, so like every single time I have to use my GoPro and it doesn't look good and it's a little grainy, I'm like, oh man, I don't want to post this. But, or like, the thing is like people really, really are craving that authenticity right now. Yeah. And I think that especially in the production space of in churches, giving people that kind of that authentic view of, these are the people behind the scenes, and their heart's good. They're wanting to glorify the Lord, not themselves, and people on stage, and like people are really craving that authenticity right now. So, if it's something that you've been passionate about, do it, make the content. But yeah, anyway, my YouTube channel has taken up a lot of my time. I'm, like I said earlier, I'm kind of in a bit of a transition season. And that's all I'm going to say about that. But so there's a lot going on. And some big things that I have planned. I'm currently working on and you heard it here first, folks. Nobody else knows about this. I'm working on a broadcast template for So I'm taking my personal broadcast template and kind of making it a little bit more accessible. Yeah. So normal people, everyday people could just download it, and it doesn't look like my mess of a template that is my my template. So I've had a number of people ask specifically for that. So that's going to be the kind of first thing that I've actually sold on my site.
That's awesome.
I'm not doing this one for free. I'm sorry.
Yeah, don't do that for free.
People are used to free stuff from me, so I gotta reel that one in.
Yeah, there's a lot of work that goes into that.
Yeah, so that's been what I'm specifically kind of working on, and then obviously training our new production guy here at the Somerville campus. He's actually a kid that kind of grew up in our youth ministry. And it's a really cool story. But he's 19 and just turned 19. Actually, I don't even know if he is 19. I think he's 18. To answer your question, Thomas, I am my template is on Ableton, my personal one. I do everything on Ableton with that for a couple of reasons. But I'm also releasing one for Logic. So it's going to be the same template for both. And I'm going to have tutorial videos and user guides for both of them, so that you can kind of, if there's one that speaks your language. I know a lot of people use Logic, so I'm going to have that option available for people. But yeah, so he's 19 and he or 18. And he did lights in our youth ministry, and real quiet kid. And he's just kind of stuck around after school and started kind of just hanging out a little bit more. And I was like, "Are you like, you want to do this? Like, you want to get involved? Like, let's go." I'm trying to, because there was a period of time where our entire production team was mostly, pretty much everybody. I don't think there was a single person under 45 in that booth.
Wow.
Which, everybody that's here, they're amazing people. It's not a dog on them, but I was really trying to get more younger people involved so that I could transition some of some of our older crew into more of a kind of a mentorship type situation. And a lot of them have really been excited about kind of having that younger group in there with them, that, they're very family atmosphere now. So, they can ask questions and, all that stuff. But he started getting involved, and he's just one of those guys that is just absolutely bought in and always here. Such a hard worker. He's 18 and owns like a really successful landscaping business, which is funny. Cool. Yeah, he's winning at life. Awesome. I wish I was winning. I wish I was winning like that. But yeah, he's doing it right. So yeah, he's such a cool guy, and he kind of stepped into this role recently at our Somerville campus, and he's been crushing it. He's an 18-year-old kid with 25, 30 people that are 45 to 50 years old, running things there, and he's crushing it. So
that's so cool.
Yeah, it's such a funny thing, because we also started we have a pre-service like meeting where we share prayer requests, and we've really started that post-COVID, because there's a lot of people with family members that were going through that, and even people on our team. So we really started leaning heavy into incorporating a prayer time before service to kind of be that, like, okay, this is the reset, and then after this is service. Mentally we can kind of and it's just funny because you got this 18-year-old kid leading a prayer group of 12, 15 guys that are all like 50, 60 years old. So but no, it's awesome. It's really cool. So yeah, we're super blessed, and that's really as far in the future as I can go right now.
Awesome. Yep. One day at a time. To that point, I think it's really cool to have like multi-generational people, like serving on, especially the tech team, because it's like, I don't know, we've got a couple older gentlemen on the team as well, and I've had conversations where it's kind of like, oh man, like back in my day it was like analog, and like, do I have anything to offer now that it's all digital? Whatever kind of the just sort of age gap conversation is, and I'm always like, like you have the experience, like you're the one who like knows. Who's seen all these transitions, and like, just because something, looks a little different now doesn't mean that like you're not still excellent at what you do. And that like, it doesn't mean you don't have like amazing insights to offer, and just like life experience too. Like literally we had dude running Switcher past weekend who I think he's like 17. And my guy running front of house is in his 50s, and like they were just having this really awesome conversation. I was like, this is just very cool to see, like like in what other world are these two people going to connect? And I think it's really amazing to be able to like facilitate that kind of interaction.
Yeah, we have a guy that's I want to say he's 65, and we used to serve in a couple different positions, and I was kind of he had some family stuff happen, and he kind of took a little bit of a step back. But when he rejoined the team, he was like, hey, I want to rejoin the team, get back involved, but I don't really want to do anything specific. I just want to like be available and ready to step in and help. Yeah. So we actually created a position for him, and he is a floater. So what it's allowed us to do is now for our second service, he's able to kind of step into like our camera positions, like especially our main follow cam, and he'll take basically, if you've ever worked food service, you've had to do this, but he gives everybody these breaks, so they're able to kind of go to the green room, get a little breather, get some water, whatever, get some coffee, and then they can come back and they just rotate through people. And that's his entire role. And it was one of those where, I had this thought like, what? I don't know what to put you at, bro. Like, I don't know if you don't want to do anything, what do you want to do? But it's been such an important role for our team and allowing more people to be comfortable serving both services. So it's been huge. Like, it's crazy what God does.
That's awesome. I absolutely love that. That's super cool. Great idea. Guys, I feel like that brings us right to our time for today. This has been really, really fun. Matt G, it's been a pleasure having you on.
Yes.
Matt B, I see you all the time. No, this has been great. Hey, if you're still watching at this point from our insiders group, make sure maybe post a poll or something later to see about just stuff that you guys would want to see from these Monday mic checks. Do you enjoy having guests like this? Do you want us to do more like demo stuff? Do you want us to like review live streams? Like we can do all that stuff, and we're gonna be doing a lot of that stuff. So I'd love to hear, especially if you're watching these right now, let us know like kind of what the vibe is and what you want to see, and we'll do more of what you want us to do. So I think that'll be really fun. Well, guys, until next Monday, happy mixing.